Hello, everyone, and welcome to the webinar. Today's webinar, Self-Care During a Crisis. Breathe, Think, Grow, with Carrie DeBeal. Carrie is the co-host of the ABC Book Reviews podcast, a popular online program that was recognized by the Wall Street Journal as a best book podcast. Carrie has worked in public libraries for over 20 years, doing everything from student page to her most recent role as manager at the Twinsburg Public Library. She's a former library liaison to Sisters in Crime, an organization of 3,600 crime writers and readers nationwide. She's coming to you from Twinsburg Public Library in Northern Ohio. So I will present to you now and pass the program over to her, Carrie DeBeal.
Okay, does everybody see my screen?
I see it, Carrie.
Great. So hi, I'm Carrie, and so GoToWebinar I have used it before, but it has been a while, so I may be a little bit rusty. Hopefully we can get through this all. Thank you, Anne, for your patience in handling this new platform, and thank you all for being here today. The last time I presented this, I presented it to thousands of people, so it was a little bit nerve-wracking. I'm glad that we have a smaller group today. That said, it is a little bit, there's quite a few of you here, 139 right now, so I may not be able to get to everyone's questions, but we will try. So today we will be talking about self-care, and we will be talking a lot about mindfulness. Here's our goals for today. We are going to talk about some different methods and exercises that you can do so that you can stay in the moment. We'll be talking about mindfulness and what that is. The situation is rapidly changing every day. It's changed since the last time I presented this program. So we will focus on how things are right now. We will talk about your library's challenges. Again, a little bit of practical stuff. I am a librarian, and while I do practice mindfulness, those two subjects do work in concert in my life. So I definitely want to touch base with all of you and find out what you are working on now and how we are planning mindfully for the future. And we will talk about a few healthy self-care activities and resources that you can turn to after this webinar as well. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about mindfulness and what it is. Mindfulness is essentially the very simplest way to describe it is staying in the moment and being aware of the present moment. I have been studying mindfulness for about 6 years now. I started on this path from a book called 10% Happier by Dan Harris that came out in 2014. And as a person who has dealt with anxiety and depression and other mental health issues, I am always looking for ways to calm that, what they call the monkey mind, that brain that's always spiraling out of control and thinking about things in a catastrophic way, or even in a simple fear like, I don't know if I'm going to have enough cheese for my tacos tonight, things like that. If you have suffered from any of those kinds of issues, then you would understand what that feels like. Now, even if you have not, even if that's not something that you have experienced, you may now be able to empathize with people who do have to deal with anxiety, because a lot of us have anxiety right now. And so mindfulness which I got on the path to the Dan Harris book, it was a way to deal with that kind of fear that I had then and that kind of fear that I have now. So mindfulness is not necessarily about meditation. It's not necessarily about a particular religious practice, although there are a few religious practices that involve meditation. You don't have to do it, but it does help. And many religious and spiritual practices involve some kind of contemplation. So prayer or other form of being quiet and getting in touch with yourself. So I'm not here to preach any particular I'm not here to bring you into any sort of fold. I'm just here to talk about different ways that you can use this concept and work on truly taking care of yourself during this crisis. So right off the bat, I want to talk a little bit about handling those challenges and how do we truly practice mindfulness in this kind of a situation. We will talk in greater detail about a lot of these things, but because this is such a new and scary thing, it's been going on a little longer now since the last time I presented this, but our emotions are all changing every day. So these are a few things that we can do when we're thinking about these challenges and that you're just focusing on being in the moment with what we're experiencing. So the first one is allowing things to be as they are. This is a tough one because if many of you are like me, we're always wanting to be planning ahead. We're thinking about the next day and the next day and the next day. It's tough to do this. If you can sit quietly if possible, but if you have small children or if you have other things going on, by the way, I do have 2 small children and they may interrupt us. Hopefully they won't, but they're busy with some games right now, but they may become bored, so we'll see what happens. But so allowing things to be what they are, sitting with what's going on and focusing on yourself and your body where it is. You don't have to push thoughts out of your mind. You can let the thoughts happen, but you can think of them as just thoughts. Think about it if you're narrating what's going on. So let's say you're sitting in a chair. I'm sitting in a chair and I have my feet on the ground. So you're saying, okay, I have my feet on the ground. My hands are in my lap. My dishwasher is running. The light is on in my kitchen. Start looking at all of the different things around you, or you could close your eyes and think, this is where I'm sitting. I can feel my feet on the ground. Focus on all those different concrete, true facts and be with them as they are. Along the same lines, holding space for your anxiety and your fear is very important right now. So in the last webinar, I talked a lot about how this sounds like a contradiction, that sometimes our anxiety and fear can be very uncomfortable, and you have to know just how far you're able to go with it. It can be very debilitating, and especially as a person who has dealt with mental health issues, I don't want to push anybody into a space where you will be feeling uncomfortable. But at the same time, if you can allow yourself to feel that anxiety, to feel that fear that we're having, and let it be, go as far as you need to go, take a step back if you need to, but let that discomfort be what it is. Instead of numbing or instead of being in denial about what's going on, focus on the facts. Focus on, I'm feeling this emotion. That goes down to my other point about being with your discomfort and giving yourself permission to feel your emotions. If you can sit with those emotions and let them be part of you, they will be easier to get through than if you're simply putting them aside for later. They'll build up inside you, and you don't want to have that happen, because once you do acknowledge that you have to feel those emotions, then it will be harder than it would be if you were giving yourself permission to feel them. It is okay to be compassionate towards yourself. I think a lot of us have been trapped in the news machine right now, and we will talk a little bit more about that. But the news machine, as well as the social media machine, what a lot of people are posting, and a lot of people are posting as ways to connect with others because we're isolating. So people are posting things that they might not necessarily have posted because they're feeling scared, or they might be posting misinformation, or they might be posting guilt and shaming content. So you have to give yourself, when you read those things, you have to give yourself the space to be compassionate towards yourself. So when I read something that says, I can't believe that whole family went out for groceries one day. When this first started, I didn't realize that I knew we needed to be distancing, but I didn't realize that when people go out in groups, that that's a problem because we're all in the same family unit. So I had to tell myself compassionately, okay, I made a mistake and I will go forward differently. I will not allow myself to feel shame, or I will feel the shame and then move on, because I didn't know and now I know better. We are not all perfect, and especially now, emotions are high. So when we give ourselves the permission to be kind to ourselves, that helps a lot as well. So I already talked a little bit about meditating. You do not have to. I did include some meditation apps in the resources, and I will talk about it from time to time. I will mention that I am trained through a system called Unified Mindfulness, which does involve meditation. It is a secular system, and it was created by Shinzen Young, who is a monk, but it is a secular system. And my teacher, Renee D, she is actually also my bassoon teacher. That's how I met her, but she became certified with Unified Mindfulness. So that is how I got on that bandwagon. You don't have to join the bandwagon, but the resources are there if you need them. Unified Mindfulness is doing a lot of free things right now on their Facebook page. And they do a lot of free things kind of in general, just to connect with people who want to learn how to meditate and who want to learn the concepts in more detail. So I will not, I'm not here to do a commercial for them, but just to give you the context of where I'm coming from. I did not start with Unified Mindfulness until 2017. But so I'd been doing mindfulness for a long time before then, but that's where a lot of my training is coming from. So if you hear me talking about things that my teacher has said, that's where it's coming from. I personally enjoy meditation because it gives me the time to be quiet and to be with my mind, and to get my mind into that kind of a headspace. But you don't have to. You can just be mindful about what's going on in your everyday without doing that extra step. Okay, so now we're going to talk about a couple of quick mindfulness exercises that are really easy that you can do that don't require any meditation. So if you've been in my webinars before, some of these might be a repeat, but these are my go-to ones that I like to do when I'm feeling stressed. And when we do go back to the library, these are a lot of things that you can actually do when you're at work too. If you have a minute to get off the desk or to get away from all the traffic. So the first one that I really like, and I don't remember where I heard this one from or I learned it from somewhere, but I go back to it a lot, is the waterfall. So imagine that you are sitting behind a waterfall. Imagine that you might be sitting on a rock or a blanket on a rock. Feel the coolness around you, feel the coolness of the space. Hear the rushing sounds of the water, all those sensory images that you can think about. And then you can imagine that all of your thoughts and all those things in the monkey mind, as they call it, all those things that are constantly stressing and bothering you, that those things are in the waterfall. That waterfall is it's there, but you're behind it. I just started reading a book called Think Like a Monk by Jay Shetty. I got the ARC at PLA, and he talks about how when you remove yourself and detach from all of those thoughts, that you can find out who you really are, which I thought was really interesting. Kind of put those two together. I've always done the waterfall, but I've never really thought about how I could be my own pure self when I'm behind that waterfall. So that's kind of an added thing that you can start thinking about if you'd like. I mentioned in the last class that if you want to be really silly about it, you could say that the water is made of something else. Maybe it's made of an orange juice or champagne or even donuts, I believe I said. That's something that might be able to give you a little bit of levity, because that's something else that we can do during this time. It is okay to focus on the positive. In fact, it's good because there's a lot of tragedy going on, but that doesn't mean that we all have to feel tragic all the time. So that's one. The breath, Jay Shetty talks a lot about the breath work in his book that I've been reading, so I've been thinking about this a lot too. So focusing on your breath, a really good exercise that you can do. So your breath is always with you, and you can focus on that breath and block out other things going on while still knowing that those things are there with you. So a good one that you can do is just a four-point block breath. So you just inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4, and then hold for 4. This is very simple. You can do this again at the reference desk. You can do it in your house while we're all stuck inside. You can do it if you're out on a walk, and it will just focus on your interior and help you get back to basics. Same thing with the grounding in the physical body. When I first started talking about mindfulness at the beginning of this webinar, that was basically this exercise that you can do. And along with that is the see, hear, feel exercise too. So focusing on those facts of where you are. I mentioned in the last class that my teacher likes to talk about her thoughts being up above her head. I thought that was an interesting image. I never really thought about it that way, but I think that my thoughts might be up above my head. They're kind of all, you can't see me, but my hands are above my head here. So not everyone has that same experience, but if that is an experience that you have, it can be kind of transcendent to be focusing on the body and focusing on the ground where you are and letting those thoughts be kind of in the ether. So if you do any sort of exercise or movement, that's a good way to do grounding in the physical body. And again, see, hear, feel is an exercise that we do in unified mindfulness where you focus on those 3 senses. Oh, great. Someone found the waterfall exercise on YouTube. I didn't even know it was on YouTube. That's great. So focusing on those senses, and you can do one sense at a time. So you can start with see, then you can go to hear, then you can go to feel, or you can mix them up. So what we will do in unified mindfulness is sit and label the senses, the sensory experiences as they come in. So if you do want to sit and meditate, you can spend time just labeling those as they come in and you perceive them. All right, so now I want to switch over to the topic of library land and how we are balancing everything that's going on. If anyone has any questions, there will be a moment coming up that I will be addressing questions and we will be sharing. So I'll talk just a little bit about this, and as this is changing every day, and you can think a little bit about what you're experiencing as well. So a lot of us are closed now. I believe there are some that are still open, and some of you are. Now, this was a confusion in the last class, so I will clarify this. The library is closed, but staff are reporting to the physical building. So some of you staff are reporting into the physical building, and everyone is staying home. In Ohio, we have a stay-at-home order that's been extended to May 1st. Some of our staff are still going into the building from time to time, but they're not required to. Some libraries, your staff may be still required to go. In the last class, there were a few people who thought staff should be reporting, and what they meant was staff should be reporting on what they're doing at home. And I clarified, yes, staff should be doing that. So that's an additional challenge, is balancing working from home. For me, working from home is difficult because I also have 2 small children and my husband is an essential employee. So he's not here, and I also have online school that I have to do with my first grader. So establishing that routine of when will we do homework, when will we do exercise, getting outside. The weather is a variable. I'm sure that many of you in Florida have good weather, but today it's balmy, but it's also rainy. So there's not a whole lot we can do outside other than take a walk. A couple people have said some are reporting to building, some have to report what they're doing at home. So yes, my staff we have been using Facebook Workplace, which is a workplace version of Facebook. People don't have to have Facebook accounts, regular Facebook accounts. They use their work email to get a workplace for Facebook account, and then we just have groups similar to regular Facebook. We also have a group chat that we're all in. A couple other people are saying some are still reporting to the building, holds pickup at front doors, and answering community information center phone lines. So yeah, we're all in very different situations. Yes, the group chat is on Facebook Workplace. So it's not regular Facebook, but it's very similar to regular Facebook. Some staff working from home, some staff coming in full time, building close to public, no curbside, reporting a few times a week to supervisors, Skype meeting. So yeah, everybody's doing something different. We've done a couple of Zoom meetings right now. I know there's a little bit of concern right now about Zoom's security, so I'm cognizant of that. We're not using it too often, and we're not using it with patrons yet, but we are talking about programming, online programming, and we have to now think about how we are going to crisis plan going forward. And it's a little bit difficult to do that because now we're in the thick of it, but I heard a presenter a couple weeks ago talking about how we can use this as a way to kind of go back and debrief ourselves after this is all over. So maybe we'll be able to come up with a better crisis plan once we go forward. And of course, there is quite a bit of uncertainty. We don't know when we will reopen. We don't know when we will reopen to the public. We had an administrative team meeting last week where we talked about going in. We will remain closed to the public. Staff will, once the stay-at-home order is lifted, staff will go in and we'll get ourselves back on our feet before we reopen to the public. So that gave me a lot of relief to hear that, because I was getting a little bit nervous about how we would catch up with everything before. But it sounds like a lot of you are still doing things. You're still coming in, some of you working from home. I also do Zumba. Someone mentioned that they're doing Zumba. I've been doing it via Zoom. I've been doing Zumba via Zoom with a friend who's a Zumba instructor. So that's pretty cool. All right, so let's move to the sharing time. So we still do have about 147 people here. And of course, there will be a recording of this that some folks will be watching later. So why don't I will take a few questions, and then I want to talk about a few other things before we get to the end of this. So if anybody would like to share anything, any questions you might have so far, or anything that you would like to share about something that you might be struggling with, or even something that you've been excited about, because we can't, as I mentioned earlier, we can't just let joy slide right now. Joy is it's the one thing that we have to hold on to and hope. This is not the end of the world. This is very tragic and very difficult for a lot of people, and we also have to hold space for that. But it's not a dichotomy. We can have both. And so we've got a couple people typing. Um, Palm Beach State College Library is distributing laptops to students. Chair yoga, inspirational videos, and interactive trainings. That's great. I have been doing yoga too as well. What are possible ways to alleviate staff stress? What are some of the libraries doing? So generally, my staff has just been doing a lot of talking. And at the beginning, when there was a lot of uncertainty, I kind of acted as a mini counselor to my staff. I talked them through a lot of scenarios, and that, yes, someone mentioned I've cried, but I know everything will be okay. I have too. Um, we've talked about doing we've shared a lot of fun memes and things like that to keep us laughing. We've talked about doing an online Dungeons and Dragons. One of our staff members, actually a few of my staff members, are very into D&D, and they want to do a campaign. So we can do that via Zoom or Skype or Hangouts or whatever it is. Someone mentioned humor helping, watching good comedians. Yeah, and even watching something like, I watched Onward on we had to buy it because we don't have Disney Plus, but I figured my kids would watch it again. But that movie was really cathartic because it's really sad but also hopeful. So I cried, but it was crying about something else that wasn't related to the crisis, so it was helpful. Got a couple of other things coming in. Yes, I know about Roll20. I haven't used it yet, but we are thinking about using that for online D&D. A lead librarian set up a Google Doc for everyone to write what they're thankful for. Reading it each morning helps refocus on positive things. I like that. And then at the Regency Park Library, they are doing a lot of virtual tutorials. Page views are up 93%. That's great. D&D Beyond is also a good resource for helping people set up and track characters. Oh, that's good, because I am kind of a D&D noob. So if I am going to be playing, my husband's really into it, but I'm going to be a little bit rusty. Some folks not watching news. I do want to talk a little bit about that later on. Appreciate having the time to participate in these sort of helpful trainings and webinars. I'm doing more of these as well, both as a participant and as a speaker. Library did a virtual story time today. It was a hit. That's great. My library's been doing that, and it's been really great just for my children to get them doing something other than whining and wanting to play video games, and I tell them no. Coworkers and I are working from home at the moment, but at a certain time we get together and do a meditation with each other. It isn't mandatory, but it feels nice to see their faces and take 5 minutes to take some deep breaths. That's great. Working on craft projects that could potentially be used for future programs. Oh, Hero Lab is a very good D&D resource as well. Regional manager is sending out a positive message daily. This week our theme is Song of the Day, and they're using the band app with the team. That's fabulous. That's another thing that my meditation teacher talks about is she calls it, Unified Mindfulness calls it nurture positive. And she said that that's a great way to be mindful with music. You can put on a song that always makes you happy. And then even if you're dealing with those difficult emotions, you can focus on just really listening to the song and hearing everything and letting it make you feel better. That's great. Grateful to be able to do webinars. That I agree. It's sometimes my eyes get tired from looking at the screen a lot, but I'm glad to have that opportunity to connect with people. So I'm going to move on, but we will have some more time to share later on. I just want to make sure I get to all the content. So I talked a little bit, a few have talked about the news and dealing with the flood of the news. And we talked a little bit about ways that our teams are staying connected right now and when should we limit connection. We were just talking about that. So for me, like I said, my eyes do get tired closing my eyes to meditate or to listen to an audiobook and go for a walk if I can. I think it's a good idea to set those boundaries about social media, as I mentioned before. And someone else mentioned in the chat that they were doing that too. If you follow news any other way, putting some limits around that. It's important to stay informed, especially with everything going on, but maybe give yourself one time per day when you will check in. I like to check in with right now where it's happening right now. So when this webinar is over, I will check in and see what they talked about. But in Ohio, we have our governor does the daily news conference at 2 p.m. So I like to know what has been said during that. I like to get the update on how many cases we have and where everything's going with any sort of orders that might be signed, just so I know what I might need to do. But beyond that, try to limit my time on news, and then I also try to limit my time on social media. Now, this can be stressful if you are responsible for posting content to your Facebook page for your library or to your Twitter or Instagram. So we have a social media team, we always have. So for that, we are all taking turns monitoring the social media so that no one person has to stay on there all the time and everyone has a chance to get a break. Staying healthy, staying positive, just a couple more things that I did already touch on, most of them. Nurture positive, that song or any sort of feeling that you have, joyful feeling. Maybe you've made something really tasty for lunch or dinner or even like a beverage. Today I made a cinnamon latte thing. I used to have an espresso machine, but it broke. So I used a pan on the stove and kind of foamed up the milk that way. And then I mixed it with coffee and put a tiny dollop of sugary, foamy stuff that I got from the store on top of that. And it was so delicious. It was just like, it was so nice to just kind of be with that coffee for a minute. I know that sounds ridiculous, but if you have something like that, you know, where you've made something or maybe you've crafted something. I know a lot of crafters are going nuts right now, making things, sewing things. My husband sewed himself a mask. He was very proud. We had a whole roll of elastic that he had squirreled away, so we're going to be making masks for people. I talked about moving around and moving your body. So because we're all stuck at home, it might be a little bit harder for you to do that, especially if you have a small place or it's hard to get outside. So if you can find a way to, even if you have a physical disability or if you have limitations, is there a way to do like a gentle chair yoga? A few people have talked about, or if you have physical therapy exercises that your therapist might have recommended, or for me, I'm doing the Zumba and I'm also doing yoga. Someone mentioned gratitude in the chat. That's absolutely right. And gratitude, there are whole books about gratitude practice that you can do, and journaling. So using your journal to write about what you're grateful for and also what you're afraid about, and letting yourself hold that space for that fear and anxiety that you might be dealing with. Someone mentioned pets. Absolutely. If you have a pet, we've got 2 cats here and a frog and a beta. And my son loves to look at his beta whenever he's feeling stressed out. I tell him just go upstairs and talk to Shark, and that usually helps him. And then, of course, acknowledging your privilege is a good thing to do when you may feel like I'm not doing enough. If you're not someone who is an essential worker, or you know someone who's an essential worker, well, thinking about what you can do to help them out. I asked on my Facebook page, what can we do? And a lot of my friends who are healthcare workers said, just stay home. This is what we're doing to protect each other right now, is we're staying home and we're keeping the kids inside. So that is okay. That's totally okay. Just be with that, acknowledge it's different, and it is what it is. We just have to be mindful with it. Oops, I hit a button. Okay. And then, of course, finally, we want to talk about nature. And if you can't get out into nature, not somebody mentioned gardening, and a few other people mentioned things that I'm going to touch on here in a minute. The being outside can be so powerful. So if you're in a place where you can at least get outside, even if you can't leave your house or your apartment, if you can just get that fresh air, take a look at the view that's outside. I'm very lucky. I have a conservancy in my backyard, so I don't have a neighbor. Well, I have a neighbor on one side, but on the other side is the conservancy. So it's easy for me to go outside and look at nature. And we also have some trails in my neighborhood, which is kind of crazy for an urban area. So we're very, very lucky here. But if you can't do that, you might be able to watch a nature video on YouTube or get it through Hoopla or Overdrive and just get outside and enjoy that fresh air. You all in Florida probably have way better weather than I do, so enjoy it for me. And a couple of other things that folks have brought up, we mentioned gardening. I'm not a gardener, but I know a lot of people enjoy doing that. So That sounds like an activity that would be very mindful. Team is doing daily yoga via Zoom every morning. 2 dogs and a cat napping. That's great. Don't watch the news at all. I read a lot, mostly fiction in a way to get away from it all. I'm doing that too. I love, love to read. I mean, that's probably why I became a librarian, although a lot of things about librarianship that I didn't know appeal to me now. But that's probably what got me interested in it. And I love cozy mystery and romance are my big escapes right now. Using my happy planner has been really helpful for me. Oh, one of my friends has one of those. Wife and I cleared out a spare room and danced together nightly. Big positive boost. That's cool. Cleaning the house is good exercise too. Cleaning is definitely a good thing to do during these times. I agree. I have cleaned my entire house from top to bottom, and it does feel good. I can't remember what book I read this in, but I remember reading one book about how, and it wasn't Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up, it was a different one, but the author was talking about how decluttering can help you declutter your mind. I thought that was interesting. Babysit grandchildren, both parents are essential. That's an amazing way to help. That's a wonderful contribution. Going on walks in my neighborhood, exercise, enjoy fresh air, and looking at trees and plants along the way. Knitting, reading, and playing video games. Animal Crossing came out at just the right time. I agree. I think a lot of people are finding comfort in Animal Crossing, and I have not played it, but I'm really tempted to. My husband has a garden, and we eat out for lunch and dinner most days. It helps us connect to one another and disconnect from the work and the news. That's cool. I love that. I like touching nature, leaves, even the trunk of a tree, flower, and grass. I love that because especially since those of us who, I'm not much of a touchy-feely person, but some people are, and it sounds kind of silly, but touching a tree trunk or a flower, that might help those people who are really tactile. I love reading also. I spent some time reading early this morning and it really helped my mood. It usually does with me too. I've been playing Animal Crossing too, and it's great because you can hang out with friends and practice social distancing. That's cool. I've been playing World of Warcraft for a long, long time, and I've taken breaks, throughout the years, but we started playing it again, just the classic lately. And that is really fun to hang out with friends that way. My kids and I sort of play badminton. We're not very good. Every evening after dinner, we are lucky to have a big backyard. That's cool. Prayer and time with God. What is Animal Crossing? Maybe someone else can explain it. It is a game for the Switch, the Nintendo Switch, but I've never played it, so I don't really know how it works. Oh, great. I'm glad I'm not the only one playing Warcraft. Catching up on sleep, eating at least one meal per day outside. Okay, thank you. Animal Crossing is a game on the Nintendo Switch where you build a town and create furniture and stuff for your island. I find that just stepping outside and appreciating nature helps me, also seeing the positive, enjoying lunch with loved ones. Most online games that allow you to socialize with people can be good, especially if you don't get to talk to a lot of people daily. I agree. Yeah, whatever your game of choice is, if it's something that you like to play, I think it's good to talk to other people. Binge watching shows on Netflix, with the family and taking advantage of free month of CBS All Access so we can watch Picard. Yes, we just started watching it last night and I'm totally hooked. and we will be watching more of it tonight, probably. Such a great feeling when you're new to this career field to see others with so many similar interests. I'm an avid Animal Crossing player as well. Giving my pet a belly rub is a good de-stressor. Plus, he likes it too. Trying new origami projects. Okay, I think I read them all. It sounds like you are all doing great stuff, and I hope that all of you feel the same as I do right now, that I'm feeling good for all of you. I'm nurturing that positive because it sounds like you're all doing things that are really helpful and that you are giving yourself self-care. So I'm really happy to hear that. So for some questions, if you have any questions, this is my email address. And we still have a few minutes. I will go ahead and continue reading all of the feedback, and I will answer any questions until we're done at 3 o'clock. For adults and children, drawing and coloring books. We have been doing a lot of art, maybe not as much as my son's art teacher wants us to because the art is messy, but it is definitely fun. Building Lego sets and coloring, yeah. We've been doing Lego sets and jigsaw puzzles and a diamond painting. I've never painted before. When this is all over, I'm going to do one of those wine and sip things. Or paint and sip. Wine and wine. Drawing and sketching. I'm sure that can be very stress relieving for those who like to do that. Photography. Even this live webinar is helpful by just listening to others out there. I agree. I'm so glad to see all of you contributing. And my email is here. If you ever just need to talk, feel free to reach out. If anybody is dealing with any sort of difficult or depressive feelings right now and you need to talk, I am here for you. Couple more. Cricut machine and vinyl t-shirt making. Yeah, my library has a couple of Cricuts. That sounds like it would be fun. I didn't realize how many librarians played Animal Crossing. Me neither. Maybe I will be the next one. I like going walking and talking to my mentors. I love reading about what others are doing. Well, later today, if you are on Twitter, I will be tweeting with the hashtag EWGC, which is Early Word Galley Chat. I like to do that. I do that every month anyway, but I think it'll be more fun to connect with people.
Hey,
We
Carrie.
talk about, oh yeah, go ahead, Ann.
Just a thought. I don't know what's going on in Florida, but in the state of Kentucky, I know that the state has contracted with a mental health company to provide anyone in the state that wants it a phone number to call.
That's great.
I believe Ohio may have done it as well. So I would just recommend that we go to our governor pages to find out this stuff. I recommend for the people in Florida, if they're interested, go to your governor's website or your state's website where they may be talking about virus information. And perhaps you have something like that as well. I'm not sure if you will,
We
given the fact
do.
that you
Yeah,
closed down. But
I think that's a great idea. In Ohio, the Summit County ADM board here in Summit County has been doing some outreach to folks. So I'm sure that there are similar resources where folks are in Florida. Just taking a look at what everybody else is doing, playing Scrabble on their phone, and I don't play Animal Crossing, but I have been doing drawings based on the style. It's a very calming style to try, and I definitely recommend it due to its use of smooth and round shapes. I
I
joined.
didn't.
Oh, go
Go ahead,
ahead.
Carrie. No, go ahead, Carrie.
I'm just finishing reading out one more. I joined Board Game Arena to be able to still play friends with games while isolated. Games with friends while isolated. That's pretty cool. Go
I
ahead,
didn't
Ann.
realize that so many Florida libraries were requiring their employees to come into the library even though you're closed. I'm just really surprised by that. I could see checking in and making sure things are going all right and emptying the book drop and stuff like that, but I did not realize so many people had to report to work.
I think when I did this before, there were a lot more people who were still going in. My library was still going in at that time, but I had to isolate because my husband's exposure. So now we're all working from home, but
Right. We're pretty much isolated here as well, but we're used to that because we're always isolated. But
yeah,
they've actually isolated us back to only medical appointments because I have health issues and my husband has health issues.
wow.
So we're not even allowed to go grocery shopping anymore.
Wow.
Yeah, that's you too, Carrie. That's an Ohio rule. Don't let your husband out of the house.
Well, he has to go to work though.
Not supposed to.
He's essential. He's got a
Okay.
letter from FEMA.
Uh, yeah, but if he has health issues.
Oh no, he doesn't.
Oh, okay. I thought you said he did.
Oh no, he was exposed. It's a
Ah,
long story.
okay.
Good old call centers. That's where you were.
Yeah, they're still open. I know that.
Yeah. Well, a few others have mentioned some things, so make sure you take a look at that chat. I don't think I have time to read everything, but as some people are talking about Stardew Valley, I've never played that. So yeah, definitely reach out to me if you have more questions or, you know, about mindfulness or about anything. We can talk more about what your library is doing. There are a lot of great Facebook groups that you can join too, that people are talking about what's going on. So there's a lot of resources for you right now.
Yes, there certainly are.
And thank you all. I see that a lot of people are saying thank you, and I appreciate for that all of you are here. That's
All
great.
right.
Everyone saying stay safe. Yes, please stay safe and give yourself the time and space to do that.
Well, I just want to thank Carrie for an excellent program. And thank you all for coming and your active participation. Stay safe, everybody. Have a great afternoon, and we'll see you again soon.